All right, it's the David Magee Show. So many times in life, we have these big, crazy dreams. And when you're having those, you kind of think deep down inside, I wonder if you don't even feel like it could ever happen. I'm just here to tell you in today's episode, I'm living in the middle of the biggest, craziest dream probably I ever had. She is live and in person because once upon a time when I and my wife, we dreamed of creating this center that was so caring for students at the University of Mississippi and helping them around substance misuse and mental health. I had this wild and crazy dream of just magical people who worked there. I remember the day the lady who is a guest on the podcast today, I met her, and it gave me chill bumps, and that person was you. Welcome, Alysia Lajune. She is a program manager at the William Magee Center for Alcohol and Other Drug and Wellness Education at the University of Mississippi. You are my dream come true.
You are going to make me blush, and I'm a pretty black girl. It's hard to see when we're blushing, but I'm over here blushing hard right now. Thank you so much for inviting me. I am just so honored just that you recognize something in me that you wanted to hear more about. And I'm honored to be carrying on your son's legacy. I know one of his desires after, I think his second or third stint in treatment was to be an addiction therapist. And the same was true for me after I went to treatment. And it's, unfortunate that he didn't get to live that out. And so I show up in the work that I do every day with the mindset of what was his goal, before his passing, was to help other people who were struggling with addiction. And so that's what fuels me in the work that I do, and I think in the work that we all do, but me specifically as a person in recovery myself. So
I wish he could meet you.
Well, he hears me talk about him a lot.
So how did you get on this journey? Because you through your work at the William Magee Center, I know I've heard crazy tales that I know were true, and we'll come back to that you're speaking, say, this semester to like 70 classes of EDHE of students on campus. We'll come back to that, but I've heard you're just doing incredible work that you almost don't know. But what I'm interested in first, Alysia, how did you come to this work?
It was definitely not the plan. I think anyone who is in recovery, who is now doing work related to that, can tell you that was not the plan. But I think that sometimes God uses us and uses our struggles to help others in their own. So I always, I went to college in Ohio. I went to Denison University.
I've heard of Denison. That's a fabulous school.
Small liberal arts college. And I actually started at Howard University, which is an HBCU in Washington, D.C. So coming from small town Vicksburg, Mississippi, got a full scholarship to this school in D.C. So, went because it was paid for. But, D.C. was very different from Vicksburg.
Yes.
And I really just did not like Washington, D.C. It was very overwhelming. I saw a lot of big city things that I just wasn't prepared for. And I was just so unhappy. But one of the key things about my story is my father was an alcoholic. He died in November 2023. He had been drinking since he was 13 when his mother passed. And I was determined to not follow in his footsteps because I had heard, if you have a parent who is an addict or an alcoholic, you'll become one. Right. So I just never wanted to touch the stuff. I remember turning 18 and in Louisiana was still the last state where the legal drinking age was 18. So it was sort of a rite of passage when we were seniors that turned 18 to go across that bridge and get us some alcohol. So I did that and it was disgusting.
You were like,
ew, how can people do this? I'm never going to touch. I don't see how my father could get addicted to this stuff. I was just never going to touch it. And so for my first 2 years in college in DC, never drank. And then I transferred to Denison University where we were in rural Ohio,
Right.
kind of tucked away, and that's just kind of what everyone did. And so
Yes.
when you're a transfer student that didn't come in an orientation program with a class, you know, you don't really feel like you fit anywhere.
Like, what's your place? You're just showing
who
up.
are my
How do
people?
I-
And so I remember after the first day of classes, a young man was like, "I've never seen you before." You know, I introduced myself, and he's like, "Oh yeah, everyone has heard about this black girl that transferred from Howard University to Little Denison. Like, why would you do something like that?" And you know, so we got to talking, and he invited me to a party that he and some of the other baseball players, he was on the baseball team, were throwing, and I'm like. He was gorgeous, first of all. So I'm not telling this fine man that I am not coming to this party. And the baseball team was very good. So this was a big deal to be brand new and be
Yes.
invited to the baseball team's party. And there was just alcohol everywhere. And I was like, this is not the time to be on that platform. So I'm just going to dabble a little bit and just fit in. And by the end of the night, I know I had probably funneled 3 or 4 beers. This is what they were doing. And it's like I felt like I just couldn't say no to the atmosphere, the
Yes.
vibe, the culture
Right.
of how they were partying. And it was so funny. I think that's kind of how I knew, yeah, this thing can really be in your DNA, because I had a miserable night. I remember getting so sick that I fell. I ended up, my teeth went through my top lip. The way that I fell on my face, I had to go to the student health center and, you know, get my stomach pumped. I mean, it was just a horrible night.
You went
know?
from A to Z.
Yes.
Like, boom, one
And
night.
I was like, never again. But the next party, I was againing. You know what I mean? Like, wanted to fit in and really felt like, I guess I just have to learn how to drink.
I will
you know?
manage it.
I'll manage it. I just won't do as much, or, you know, and it just became a weekly thing. And then it became, you know, more than weekly. And I think the way in which William's story resonated with me the most is, you know, when you hear, you know, just his sort of portfolio, how smart he was,
Yes.
you know, being able to keep all these things in the air, athletics, you know, D1 track athlete. He's, I actually just recently learned that he was part of the Croft Institute.
Yes,
I
at the
spoke
same
I
time
spoke
he was
to
in honors
Croft, you know,
college.
they invited me to speak a couple of weeks ago, and we're talking about him. You know, honors college, you know,
Yes.
just all of these things about him. I was in a sorority. I was, you know, an honors kid. I felt like we were so similar in how we presented to our, you know, peers and our, you know, faculty and staff. But I also struggle with mental health stuff. I had an anxiety disorder. I struggle with depression. And I think when you are bringing all these wonderful things to the table as a student and you're getting praised for it, there's that pressure to keep that up.
Yes.
Like, I've got to keep being who
Right.
people think that I am. So what started off as I'm drinking because everyone else is drinking at the party became how I coped with my anxiety. Because that took the edge off. I didn't know that you could take medication to help you with anxiety. I didn't know, you know, you can just go talk to the school counselor. Because, I mean, I grew up in a Black Christian family. We take it to Jesus. We take it to the altar. We don't put family
It
business
wasn't
out
discussed.
there. Yeah. So I just started coping, because what I did notice about alcohol is it relaxed me in the beginning, you know? And so I went for that feeling that, you know, my brain is like, that's our dopamine. I don't need dopamine because I'm drinking. That's our dopamine. Because it always misleads you in the beginning into thinking it's actually helping.
Yes.
It's loosening you up. It's
Yes.
relaxing you. It's taking the pressure off. It's taking the edge off. So I self-medicated all through college, you know? And so as I learned more about William's journey, you know, I think more students are like William, are like I was, than are willing to admit it. And that's why, you know, I always wanted to work in student affairs. My first job after Denison was at the Ohio State University. I knew I wanted to be. My dream was to be like a dean of students.
Yeah. I could see that.
That was the career goal, dean of students, and so I just wanted to do student affairs. That's really all I cared about. And when I hit my rock bottom in Minnesota, I was working at the University of Minnesota at the time. I went to finally, you know, mustered up the courage to go to treatment. And it was in treatment that I remember one of my counselors saying, you know, it sucks to go through what you're going through, to have to struggle with mental health, you know, issues and struggle with addiction. But sometimes struggles are put on us, A, because we are strong enough to carry that struggle, but B, because we are call to help others carry that struggle. And she told me, when you get out of here, because I did a 5-week residential and then 3-month outpatient, but I was in residential. She said, when you get out of here, your life journey should be helping people either prevent, addiction or help them in treatment and help them in recovery. She said, you'd be missing your purpose on this earth if you don't do that. So I always had a master's in counseling. I just never wanted to use it in this realm. But it was just so funny that I always kind of was equipped with this skill set. And I did. I started working with a treatment center in Minnesota, and I became a certified recovery support specialist, certified peer recovery specialist in Minnesota, worked with Minnesota Recovery Connection and a lot of other initiatives, and then moved back to Mississippi and wanted, to kind of do the same thing. But I always missed working with college students because I felt like that is the group, that is the audience that I think I can touch.
Yes.
So I learned of a position at Mississippi State as a collegiate recovery coordinator, collegiate recovery community coordinator. I was offered the position and accepted it, but at the time, my family dynamic with my partner, and I had custody of my nephew, it just wasn't conducive to me living in Columbus, Mississippi, and working in Starkville, and my partner working in West Point, and it just didn't work. So I had turned it down, but it was just always on the back of my mind how cool it would be to do work like that specifically for college students.
Yes.
So fast forward a couple of years, the relationship falls apart. My nephew's back with my mother, and I find myself like back in Vicksburg, not knowing where to begin.
What do I do? Where do I go?
Yeah, and I was like, maybe I can try and see about if Mississippi State still is doing that, and they kind of were in a different direction at that time. And I said, I'll look at Ole Miss. I never ever thought in a million years about employment at Ole Miss. It just never crossed my mind, and because I never even thought I'd be back in student affairs until that Mississippi State position, kind of intrigued me.
Yes.
And I kid you not, David, the day that I went online to HR and looked at job listings was the exact same day that program manager position had posted. That same day, I literally was able to just take my resume from,
here I go,
and just change a few things around, applied the exact same day. And I think it might have been not 2 weeks later they invited me for.
I know they didn't hesitate.
And it was one of those things where it happened. Everything just happened back to back so quickly that you just know this is divine intervention. This is not about me impressing anybody. This is about me being placed by whomever.
It's where you are meant to be.
Placing me where I'm supposed to be. So now I'm back working with college students, and I'm able to focus on a subject matter that means so much to me. And so just talking about prevention, education, talking about what services we have, helping students identify when they may be a problem drinker, and being able to present it in such a way that they don't feel like
there's something wrong with me.
That they're being judged, that they're being, I recognize the age difference, but I walk in there with my Chuck Taylor sneakers on or whatever, and I'm not trying to be young. I just am naturally cool, but I do want them to not see me as this, person old enough to maybe be my grandmother talking to me about drugs and alcohol. And so one of the first things that I say, and I train my GAs and my well reps to say is, we are a no judgment zone. We are not here to tell you what to do and what not to do. We know what happens on college campuses. Ole Miss gets the reputation as a party school. I'm here to tell you this is my 6th university I've worked for in my student affairs career. Every college is a party school.
Every single one.
They partying at Belhaven.
Yes.
They're partying at Mississippi College.
100%.
Because it's not so much the college as where the student is in their life, transitioning from away from mom and dad. I'm kind of on my own. I have sort of this newfound freedom. And there's temptations all around, So there's nothing unique to Ole Miss in terms of, the accessibility of drugs and alcohol. You're going to find that at any college
anywhere,
that you go to.
everywhere.
And so I just let students know it's going to be around you. Here's what you need to know before you partake if you so choose to. I'm not here to talk you out of it. I'm here to give you the real of what risks lie ahead. What are some dangers? So we talk a lot about how personalities can change when you're under the influence. Things that sober you would never even consider. Liquid courage you, or high you might be more bold or might be more susceptible to peer pressure. So we just talk about those kinds of things. And I've had students pull me aside and say, I actually really don't even like it, but I just feel like I can't say no.
I've had students tell me the very same thing over and over. They say, I don't really like it. I don't even really want to do it. I just haven't figured out how kind of not to.
And that was me when I transferred. And so I tell girl, dude, get you a red cup, put you some soda in that thing, drop a lemon wedge in there, because people are less likely to push drink on you if they think you're already drinking. And that was what I had to learn after treatment, when I wanted to still do some of the same things and go to the same places and hang with the same friends.
Yeah, I don't want to sit at home every night
I still want a life. I still want to party, but I had to learn to look the part. And so sometimes it's just all about, how do you look the part?
It is true at a party. Because when I quit drinking, Alysia, I got so tired of people trying to push drinks on me. I got sick of it. And so I realized I need to just get a glass in my hand, and it can be water and a lemon. They'll stop, and they do.
I'd get an empty beer can out of the garbage can,
just like
when no one was looking, and
carry it
around. And
if this
folks
is what
leave you alone, and they don't mean any harm. They're not trying to hurt you. It's just, hey, join in the fun.
It's just what they
join
think.
in the fun. But I think I try to convey the message that you have agency over your own life. You can say, oh, I can't drink tonight, I'm on some medication, or I can't, whatever. And I think that I thought this then, that I would be judged back when I was, a junior at Denison. I think that students assume that they're going to be, looked at negatively if they don't. But I think surprisingly more and more students, get it. They understand, and it's not that big of a deal.
I think they do, and I think we are seeing a culture shift. People like you and a lot of the work that's being done, we're seeing some. We're not all the way there, but there is more of that where they understand it, and it's not like some scarlet letter on
right. I always start off by telling William's story, and I train, like I said, my GAs and our well-revs, which are students who are certified peer educators, undergrads that do wellness education as representatives of the William Magee Center. I'm big on us honoring his story, putting some respect on his name. So I don't like when people call it the Magee Center. It's the William Magee Center. We will call this kid's name.
Do you see the chill bumps on my arm?
We will remember him. And but in telling the story, I like to always emphasize that this is one student and one story. This is not the only experience that we know of students. We may not lose every student who overdoses or who experiences alcohol poisoning, but some students come eerily close.
Yes.
And I tell them, I'm not here to tell you what to do, what not to do. I just want you to use good judgment so that we don't lose you.
Yes.
I always say, we don't want to name another building center program initiative after another student.
Right. One's
and
enough.
that you can see that they receive that. You can hear, it's quiet, and we always talk about they weren't really engaged. But what I've noticed about every class I've presented to is they're leaning in.
Oh, yes.
They may not be answering questions or raising their hands.
But when you can hear that pin drop.
Locked in. They really are locked in because we try to start off making it real and say, so if you choose to drink, if you want to experiment with, recreational drugs, make sure you are well informed, and that you are not doing something that is going to bring harm to your body, because we don't want to lose you.
Right.
And so they really, I think, get and I tell my own story, my own recovery story. And so I think they're like, okay, this lady really cares. Like, she really don't want us to die. So let me listen to what she has to say, and then hearing it from the students that are closer to their age even resonates with them even more. And so I think the telling of his story, which is why it's like the first thing that we do, we start off, our center is named after this student. And let me tell you a little bit about this student, because we want to let them know that it's addiction doesn't discriminate, and sometimes it's not even about being, addicted. It could be, hey, dude, take this pill. It'll help you study tonight. And you don't know where that thing came from. And that thing may have lethal dosages of fentanyl in it. So, we talk a lot about, you got to know the source of anything that you're putting in your body, So I think that as we talk
I actually know a student who had an overdose experience from that exact thing, was not a drug user, got a pill. It was counterfeit, and they end up in the hospital. They did survive it. Yep. And that's not just talk. And so I tell them the same thing. It's not a scare tactic. We're telling you what's real.
75% of confiscated counterfeit pills have lethal dosages of fentanyl in it. Yeah. So when we're talking to students about the fentanyl epidemic, again, like you said, we're not trying to scare you.
It's not a scare tactic.
We're just saying these folks are gifted enough to make it look like the real thing. And so you Google this and you put in the little code that's on the side of the Adderall pill, and you look online and it looks like the same thing. Yes. It's legit. Like they make them look legit.
Absolutely.
And you can't tell the difference. But if you didn't see that thing come from a pharmacy with your own eyes, you better proceed with caution. If you have to test it with a fentanyl test strip, which we do give out for free at the William Magee Center for this purpose, the fact that what I always say is the fact that you even feel you need to test it, your spidey senses are trying to tell you something, So you might want to be careful,
So can you just hit a point that we need to talk about for a minute. I need to. Test strips. It's interesting that as I travel around and speak with parents and schools around the country, I find that sometimes that's controversial.
Oh, yeah.
Which is interesting to me. Because they say, aren't you encouraging use? And I say, well, you should hang out with you should know people in recovery, because we'll tell you that it's really, there's no thing like that encourages you. Sometimes if you're going to do it, you're going to do it. Your mind, that part of your brain,
made up.
And I know like me. I had somebody say to me a few weeks ago, and I said, okay, I hear you, but I said, let me tell you something. Let me tell you how many people I know that have been used test strips, been saved by Narcan, et cetera, who are now in recovery, who are now the most beautiful examples of this grace and this gift and this second chance, and making such a difference for their life. You got to be able to live that next moment to get that second chance.
Right. Yeah. The whole idea of harm reduction, in the alcohol, drug, addiction community is controversial for that very reason. And there are people that are just adamant that you're encouraging it. If you offer, even when we talk about sex ed, you have people that are like, if you provide condoms, you're encouraging them to have sex. If they, like you said, if they want to do it, let's not be naive.
No.
And like we talk about the age range that we're working with college students specifically,
who are more risk prone anyway.
Yes, this is a time where there's almost this feeling of, I didn't even have a full college experience if I didn't, do this or didn't do that or didn't try this or didn't do that. So I'd rather them have these safety measures in place in case they do. And sometimes it is that coming so close to something dangerous happening that is the wake-up call and the aha moment.
Sometimes I know some that have used a test strip and said, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Because they
came that close
bought
to taking
some drugs
something that could have killed them.
It had fentanyl, and they got literally, is the old term, scared straight.
Right.
So, and that's easier for people to say. I think those of us in recovery that probably more understand the mind of somebody who's misusing or who is prone to misuse. We probably have a little more understanding of that. But what I always respond is, I know plenty of people whose lives have been changed because they were given another day.
Right.
B, when it's your child, let me tell you, you're going to want them to have a test strip.
Right.
Because you're going to want them to have that second chance.
And you're going to want to know that they are surrounded by people who were smart enough to carry Narcan. Because you can't administer it to yourself.
You cannot administer it to
when
yourself.
we talk about Narcan in the same way I talk about CPR.
Yes.
You hope to never need to use it.
Yes.
But just in case, you're equipped. And so ideally, we've had students, because we give it out for our safe spring break.
Absolutely.
And in March, and we have students like, oh, I don't do that kind of stuff, or I don't hang with people. I was like, and that's good for you, but you'll never know when you're stopping for gas at a gas station and someone's passed out and you just might happen to have had it in your car. You just don't know. So when I compare it to CPR, people think of it kind of differently. You know what I mean?
I think that is a great
I'd rather
analogy.
Students have it and never need it than be in a situation where they need it and they don't have it.
Absolutely.
So us providing those vending machines that we now have on campus,
yes, big advance.
I walk by them every now and then, and they are actually taking it. They're very appreciative, and they may sit up and collect dust. That's obviously what we'd want, because it's never been used. But you know what?
Let them collect it.
Let them collect the dust. But if something happens, like we tell them all the time, if they don't know, it's not going to hurt them if it's not opioid related. But if it is, you're
going to need it and want it.
Students appreciate it, and I wish I could invent like a keychain or something to make it more convenient for them to carry it around. But we are really, part of our AOD education platform is destigmatizing Narcan, fentanyl test strips, and the whole concept of harm reduction.
And that's very important. I had a young lady when I was talking about Narcan once, and this thing came up in a question and answer session of it being a little controversial. And I think I'd said something to the fact of, it's hard for me to get my head around. I said, I understand debate's healthy,
right,
but it's hard for me to get my head around something that saves lives and gives people a second chance as too controversial. A young lady contacted me afterwards, and she said, I just was not comfortable speaking up because I'm still trying to get over the trauma from what I experienced. She said, but I just need you to know that I've never used drugs other than alcohol, and moderately at that. But she said, I was at an airport in the South recently, and I went in the bathroom and I was washing my hands, and there was this white powder, and I swept it off, and then guess I touched my face and I didn't realize. She falls on the floor. There's fentanyl in it. It was a powder with fentanyl in it. She's at an airport, so there is fentanyl. Security comes, they have fentanyl, and she comes back to life. And she said, it's been such a traumatic experience for me. She said the trauma was part of, she had a hard time at first, even close family, when they heard the story, so stigmatized of, she had an overdose from fentanyl, she was saved by Narcan, of everybody even like, really, what were you doing?
Right.
And she said, I'm telling you, I've never purchased or misused. And if Narcan wasn't there, she wouldn't be with us today. She wouldn't
be with us. And I think people, it is hard for them to wrap their mind around how easily we can be exposed despite not having any desire whatsoever to, partake, engage, consume. But we can still be exposed. That's one of the reasons why we encourage the nightcaps for covering your drink, because there are people out here that are just, you're dancing and, your cup's up here and and someone can drop something in your cup.
And you didn't ask for it, and you don't
ask
want
for
it,
and you don't even know it's in there. So, we talk to them about being vigilant about watching your own cup, not, sharing drinks. Back in my day, a young lady, with the right outfit on, could go out with $0 and just have drinks bought all night long.
Absolutely.
And we're just, even then, I think back of how silly that was,
Yes.
that we would just take a drink from any random stranger, because you just never know. So we're trying to help students understand that carrying Narcan and having fentanyl test strips, available, for just to help a peer, to be a good bystander.
Right.
Isn't indicative of your life choices and your lifestyle and what you do. You just don't know what might be around you, And we still have our work cut out for us. We know we do. We don't hear of every incident,
Right.
But at least we're not hearing about fatalities.
But the
mean?
thing is, I've had students knock on my door. I think the first time I was living in the dream, like I talked about, being here with you today is literally, to me, wow, I'm in that dream. I mean, it's real. It's happening as I'm hearing you talk about this life-saving work. But students have knocked on my door and they've said, David, the Magee Center saved my life. And
wow.
I cried for 3 days. I'm telling you.
I wish that we could get more of those stories.
Yes.
Of students, and I know that there are reasons why students don't want to say,
absolutely.
he's not, no one wants to get in trouble,
That's
or
right.
They don't want to get their house in trouble, or different things like that. But I do wish that there were a way that we could hear more of how it is actually working. But I think for me, the fact that I walk by those vending machines and one day it's completely full and the next day there's 8 boxes left, is telling me enough. I know.
And I'm so proud of this work because look. Even 7-8 years ago, before this center, I'm not patting anybody on the back even for the concept of it to getting it done. I'm just talking about reality. People say to me all the time, I can't believe this, from another SEC school, a parent. I'm so amazed. I can't even believe how far Ole Miss has come with some of its messaging. And it's a real testament to the leadership to be able to stand behind that, to go, look, this is not, we're not going to get caught up in controversy or whatever. This is just, we're caring for students and their health and their well-being.
Right.
And it just like you'd like them to buckle up when they get into a car.
Right, exactly.
We're just trying to help them.
That's harm reduction.
That's harm reduction.
Let's just call it what it is. When you put that seatbelt on, that's harm reduction.
That's harm reduction. Yeah. Walking with a friend somewhere late at night. I mean, these things are common sense. Well, that's all we're talking about here. And it has been so groundbreaking for the university. And at the end of the day, it's just caring for them. And, and lives get saved that you don't always know about. And what's fun for me is, because I don't work in the center, even though a lot of people often think I do, I get that a lot. I'm like, look, I'm writing a book or I'm out. But what I do have the gift of is often, because maybe I'm one step removed, I get a lot of those and I try to pass them on, just like somebody knocking on my door and said, I do get a lot of those, like, wow, the impact. And what happens sometimes is you guys are out there doing the work. And then it breaks stigma. It makes a student say, oh, maybe I need some help. And then that crisis comes. And then sometimes you've done the work, but then they'll come through a door. Like this past semester, there were 2 gentlemen that I helped get to treatment. And, I thought and so it was that work that helped get them there. They and their parents are calling me. It's in that emergency status of, we got to go now. It lands at my door because they know I have some association, and then they go. And we can never all connect all those dots because the world is moving fast. And what's interesting is I was speaking in a community in Texas a few weeks ago, or a month or 2 ago. And one of those students, I had somebody come up and whisper in my ear and just said, I know you know so-and-so, and I'm just here to tell you they're doing okay.
Wow.
And so I had not even heard.
Sometimes we don't get to hear.
We don't always get to hear.
Right.
So you're doing the work. They realize they got to go. I and a fly am like land somewhere and like, okay, we'll call this treatment center. They go. I don't hear anymore. I'm just speaking in a whole other state.
Wow.
And somebody whispers in my ear that I don't even know, but they've come to see me speak.
Wow.
And you just think like,
amazing.
is this real? You think,
Well,
is this real? But it is. That's recovery, right? You live this, I live this. There are these miracles happening out there that just don't always get told.
It's one of the things that I always emphasize when we do our mental wellness presentation. I focus a lot on mental wellness and stress management because we know stress is a big issue for college students, and mismanaged or unmanaged stress can turn into burnout, can result in coping in unhealthy ways like self-medicating with drugs and alcohol. So we talk a lot about that. But one of the things I always tell students is never put anything and anybody above your physical and mental health. If you need to take a break, if school is so overwhelming that you need to sit out a semester, if you need to go to treatment, school ain't going nowhere.
It's
Ole Miss
not
is gonna
going
be right
anywhere.
here when you get back. You would be doing yourself a disservice to try to push through a very difficult situation. You know, I didn't go to treatment until 2014. So we're talking 11 years ago. And I'm beyond doing this, but I went through a phase where I just kept fixating over what if I had gone earlier? What if because I knew.
Oh, we share.
Before,
I played that game with
I
me
knew
myself.
long before I went to treatment that I had a problem, but I kept thinking
Pushing
I can
that
do
marble
this on
down
my
the
own.
road.
I remember having a calendar and I would like X the number of days that I didn't drink, and
like
and
that fixed it.
Yeah, and I just couldn't wrap my mind around the fact that I needed help. That I couldn't do it myself. And this went on for years. And so one of the things I tell students is one of the bravest, most courageous things you can do is acknowledge that you can't do it on your own and take advantage of the resources that are there, because we have people here that work specifically with college students and are going to make sure that you're able to pick back up where you left off when you've taken care of yourself first. And then we have a collegiate recovery community that's here to
support you when you come out,
and and help you be able to have a community and have fun and still enjoy the college experience without. I think some students think, I don't want to relapse, so I better just transfer from Ole Miss. So that's the last thing we want you to do, and that's why the CRC program and concept is becoming a best practice nationwide, and you're seeing these collegiate recovery communities all over the country. Because nobody wants you to feel like you can't stay here. You know, the real world, you can't be buffered.
You're going to have to learn to live in it.
Yeah.
You have to learn to live in it.
Let's start by you returning to Ole Miss, in a supportive community and taking advantage of those resources, and maybe even being a voice to someone else to say, hey, this happened to me. Those personal testimonies go so far.
Those personal
and
testimonies.
It's one of the reasons I'm so vocal. And I've heard people say, you disclose too much about yourself too soon. I'll tell you in a minute about my depression, about my anxiety disorder, about my ADHD.
That's what I love about
medications I'm on. Because I want to normalize. In the same way someone might talk about, being epileptic or having, diabetes.
Well, absolutely.
We should be able to talk about, having substance use disorder.
Because you, by the way, are so put together that you need to tell them that, because I think some people have a stereotype of what an addict or an alcoholic looks like. Yes.
And I want you to see that, again, it doesn't discriminate. Addiction doesn't discriminate.
Not.
And some of us can be graduate educated professionals in recovery, and since I went to treatment in 2014, I have relapsed a couple of times. I like to talk about relapse. Let's just keep it real. Like, it can happen, and actually my relapse is what made me really, really understand the power that addiction has. I remember someone saying in treatment, you need to have a healthy respect for your addiction. And I was like, what does that mean? And it took my first relapse to understand what she meant. Like, this thing is big and at times can be bigger than us. And I learned to have a healthy respect for my alcohol use disorder when I had my first relapse. And so I have to be vigilant every day, about this thing can show up.
And I respect your honesty on that so much, because particularly I think the work you do around students, Alysia, I heard early on and learned from students, one of the things that really scares them when they start thinking, oh, I hear them say this to me all the time. I know I need to stop. Mm-hmm. I just don't know if I can sign off of this forever.
Yeah.
That the forever freaks them
the
out.
Lifelong recovery.
Young people are so overwhelmed by that. And it's so, and they're afraid that if they do say, I have a problem, they're afraid that if they relapse, they'll be a laughing stock. What will people really double judge them then? I've heard it all, and you've heard it all. And I think bringing the humanity to it. And look, I've been pretty outspoken about this. I've written about it. I've spoken about it. I'm in the recovery world. I let a lot of my friends know. I'm sorry. I know we have to celebrate so-called perfection. It's complicated.
It is.
It sends some messages to the more of the work I do is with young people and young people's parents. And both of those segments really struggle with the concept of abstinence forever, failure in relapse, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think you're bringing this realistic, honest, human, this is reality, is so powerful.
Well, I think something else that I see that has been a struggle for me in my recovery journey has been finding spaces where professionals feel comfortable talking about their recovery journey, or even if they aren't on that journey yet, but recognizing that they need help. Because oftentimes there's this assumption. I even remember when I was in Minnesota going to an AA meeting in St. Paul. I'll never forget. It was a predominantly Black meeting that somebody had recommended, obviously because I'm an African-American woman, and she thought I'd feel, comfortable there. And I remember just kind of telling my story as a new person showing up. And I remember this lady turning to me and saying, so you ain't never been to jail. You ain't had your kids taken from you. She's listing all these things that are like common for the person dealing with addiction that I've never experienced. So she was like, I don't even understand what you drinking for. Like, what, you don't have any problems. And that's what I'm like, addiction doesn't discriminate. There's this assumption. And there are times that I've felt like people aren't going to take me seriously when I talk about my struggles with alcohol, because I've excelled in areas where they again, there's that stereotype.
Oh, I've faced it.
That because you haven't this, that, or the other, then you're not one of us. I was like, I don't need to have gone to jail to be an alcoholic. Trust me.
Hello.
I have wasted a bottle of vodka on the counter and licked it off with
Trust me, and that's jail.
Yes, that's prison. That is a prison. And I lived in my own type of hell.
Yes,
and that's exactly how I tried to explain it. It's like, I don't like the term high functioning, but that's, a term that a lot of people, but I think I would qualify to people who
you
use
were
that
a professional
term.
you were achieving things. But here's what I tell people on that, because I've heard some of that too. And I go, oh, could I open my heart to the guilt and shame that I have? Because you see, I told somebody once, you see that I wrote this book about Toyota that was a bestseller in India, and that I was on CNBC the next day. I see the guy who's smelling his own breath on CNBC and who actually wrote a subpar book on Toyota that sold well. But what if I'd had a clear mind?
Yes.
Where would I have gone professionally?
My gosh.
Would I have found my purpose sooner? How many people would I have helped, including and especially myself, my family, and so many others? I delayed so much of it that I'm now 59 years old and what I call a late bloomer. I'm proud to be a late bloomer, and I'm only beginning my work. And I'm celebrating all of that because I have made peace
Right.
with that past, as I can see that you have
to
too.
learn to give myself grace. And one of the things I also had to do, kind of to your point about when you were saying, the sort of the permanency of recovery and how that, not drinking forever.
Yes.
Because my first relapse was me sort of testing, well, maybe now that I've been
Grown
to
up.
treatment and I've got a toolkit,
Yeah.
a relapse prevention toolkit, maybe I can drink normally like regular people.
Yes.
What really solidified my recovery journey and helped me really, dig deep into it, I had to mourn or grieve the Alysia who could drink
Yes.
and control it.
Yes.
I had to
right.
grieve her and know that person
I love that.
no longer exists.
So well said.
And, I almost sort of eulogized that version of me
Yeah.
who, could drink on the weekends and was fine through the rest of the week, But then I became someone who had to drink every day. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? I had to release her and know that is not me. And I've got to now treat alcohol the way a person addicted to shellfish treats shrimp. A person who has not addicted to allergic
allergy.
to shellfish. Yeah.
Shellfish or
I have-
peanuts.
yeah,
or,
I'm allergic to alcohol. If I consume it, I will die. That is now my relationship with alcohol.
Yes.
I have to treat it like this. I have an illness.
Yes.
There's this sort of school of thought that it's not really an illness. I don't engage.
Yeah, nor
This is
do
an
I.
illness. And I know that if I start, I cannot stop.
Yes.
Even if it's just one drink
Sure.
in the room, I'm gonna want to grab
You're
my
going
keys
for
and
another.
go and get it. I have had to learn that about,
Mm-hmm.
but I had to grieve for that version of me,
Yes.
who had was a problem drinker,
Yes.
but not an alcoholic,
but could
this-
function.
but could function. And then I realized that I had to redefine functioning. So to the outside world, I was
Right.
functioning.
Yes.
But I remember having a job where I would give speeches every morning. And I would take 2 shots of vodka
Yes.
and then drink coffee before I took the stage. And I would give my speech. And I remember my director at the time saying to my colleagues in a staff meeting, oh my God, if y'all haven't heard Alysia give her morning speech, she's just such an eloquent speaker. I just love hearing her speak. And it would make me sick to my stomach, the praise, because I knew that before I took as good as it was to them, it was
You
the
knew.
guilt and shame of knowing
knew.
what I would do to get myself to be that. And then wondering, like you said, how much better might my speech have been if I didn't
If
take 2 shots of
not.
vodka before I took the stage. Do you know what I mean? We think that we
I
need this
do
to
know
be
what
better.
You mean.
But I resented the fact that she was really not praising me.
Not a bit.
She was
do.
praising intoxicated
Intoxicated
me.
you.
You know what I mean? This person that needed something else.
Yeah.
And I wanted to start showing up in the world as my true authentic self with no help, no.
And I got good news for you. You got plenty. You have so much. Somebody told me that early on. They said, David, I think you probably have enough personality. You don't. I said, you're exactly right. And it took me a while to really get my head around it. It was not improving me. Even if somebody thought, yeah, okay, the speech. But again, where I would have been the night before, where I would have been in that moment, what I would have done after I delivered that speech, just like you, it was taking pieces away from me at shedding it.
Shedding what was weighing me down.
Yeah.
And so to your point about sort of the timing, I just celebrated my 50th birthday, September. And
Happy birthday a month later.
thank you.
That's
And
a beautiful
you talk
age, by
about-
the way.
Thank you.
Yes.
And I expected to be, I didn't know how I would feel about it, but I it's back to giving myself grace because, you think by this age I'm going to have. And so
Yes.
the hard part was recognizing what I had not achieved by that age. But, I lean on giving yourself grace because me and my therapist, we talk about that
Yes.
a lot. Learn, like you are a counselor, you speak life into other people, and yet you're so hard on yourself. Like,
because
would
you're
you
doing
ever
it.
say
Yeah.
the things that you say about yourself to other people? And I'm like, never. So we're learning to talk to myself the way I would talk to someone I love, because I do love myself. But I kind of fixated on that, how my my drinking derailed my career and my life.
I did a lot of that.
And I wasn't diagnosed with ADHD until I was 41. And so trying to cope with something I didn't know I had, because I didn't present, I was an honor student.
Sure.
I didn't present as someone that would have had ADHD, because there
Right.
was this like locked in view of what a kid with ADHD looked like, and I didn't fit that description, so no one would have thought to assess me for that. So I think about the years that I lost, but I also think if life had gone the way I thought it should have gone, or I wanted it to go, I absolutely would not be here today.
So I've learned this thing.
I've learned to not have regrets, because there are certain things that just absolutely wouldn't have happened. People I wouldn't have met, lives I wouldn't have changed. I still have people that I met when I was working in treatment centers in Minnesota and even in Mississippi, that it was like, tell me about a conversation or something I said to them that I don't even remember saying. I'm at the age, I don't remember that conversation, but if you say so, but they can tell me like word for word, you said this to me and it changed my life, and thank you so much. It's like sometimes I don't even realize how heavy my influence has been on people.
You're living in it, and you're doing it, and I'm watching what you're doing on this university, and I'm watching you be you, and you're doing it and you're living it. All that said, I do have an idea, because I stand back and I watch you, and I'm just a little bit older than you, almost a decade, but we're both at least.
Actually, I thought we were closer
in the 50s.
Yes.
The
fine 50s.
Yes, that's it. And what I can tell you is, knowing your talent, knowing your heart, knowing your gift, and knowing how recovery works. Again, you're doing it now, and that's more than enough, and it's amazing. But I'm also pretty sure that for me, I had a lot of those same feelings, and I battled a lot of those same regrets of what have I done. It didn't matter what I've achieved. I knew that I'd left a lot on the table, so to speak. And I had to make peace with that. We have a lot in common.
Yeah.
We have a lot in common. That's what recovery is, right? I think it's typical for most people that are in recovery that had to fall to get there. They left a lot on the table. And recovery is the growth of making peace with that. And then once you do get a handle on that, you can begin to walk through doors and do things that you couldn't have even imagined, right? And I think you're doing that, because I'm watching it and it's underway. And I just kind of, we just wake up and take small steps. I think that your 50s will be very magical, and probably things that you couldn't have even imagined. And your talent, you have so much talent, you're so caring, and you're so honest and genuine. It just tends to find its mark,
I think, and I've actually gotten away from, and I used to feel bad, because I remember my boss, Dr. Shannon Richardson at the William Magee Center, we had our first sort of, I think, you're, as a new employee, you have your probationary kind of conversation about how are things going or whatever. And, I told her, I feel bad, because I think one of the prompts was about, what are you envisioning for yourself? Like, what is your trajectory in terms of your career aspirations? And I'm like, I have been through so much that I have just enough light for the step that I'm on, and I'm learning to be okay with that. I'm also learning to let the right things find me. And that's a major shift from how I always grew up. Like I said, dean of students and this. And if it wasn't that, then it was wrong. I've gotten away from that, because like I said, I would not be where I am now. I feel such a sense of, purpose and rightness, for lack of a better word, in terms of the work that I'm doing. This is right for me. If I were higher up the totem pole, I wouldn't be in the trenches with the students. And I like being face to face with students. I like that direct, high touch student services. It fits me very well. Like, that's what I want to do.
And they need it.
And I think they need that,
And I think in many ways, the great thing about doing good work is it just keeps going. And in a lot of ways, we're probably just getting started.
I think we are.
I think we are. I think we are.